Hello and welcome. Today we are going to sharpen one of the most important skills you'll need for university and, honestly, for life, inferring meaning. It's all about unlocking ideas that aren't spelled out for you, which helps you think more critically and read way more efficiently. So, let's get started.
Have you ever been reading something and just had that feeling that there's more to it than what's on the page? Well, you're right, there is. Writers and speakers often leave little clues, expecting you to connect the dots. So the real question is, how do we find what they've left unsaid?
And that's exactly what we're here to do. Think of this explainer as your personal guide to reading between the lines. We're going to start with the simple stuff and then work our way up to more complex academic texts. By the end, you'll have the tools to be a master of interpretation.
All right, so first things first. Every good detective needs to know what they're looking for, right? So let's start with a big question. What is an inference anyway? Getting this down is the foundation for everything else we're going to cover.
Simply put, an inference is an educated guess. It's all about taking the clues the author gives you, mixing them with what you already know about the world, and then figuring out the message they didn't state directly. And this is key. It's not just a random guess. It's a real conclusion, and it's built on evidence.
And that's why I love this way of thinking about it. It really is like being a detective. You're not just a passive reader anymore. You become an investigator, actively searching for evidence inside the text to draw a conclusion that's both logical and reasonable. Let's look at a super simple example. Okay, the text, our clue, says John left the room and slammed the door. Now the words John is angry are nowhere in that sentence, but that action, slamming a door, that's a huge piece of evidence. Your conclusion, your inference, is that John is probably pretty angry or frustrated. See? You're already doing it.
Now, every good detective needs a reliable method, system, so we've put together a toolkit for you. It's a simple, four-step process for uncovering meaning, and it works whether you're reading a dense textbook or just listening to a lecture.
So here it is, our four-step method. First, you read carefully for clues. Second, you tap into your existing knowledge. Third, you ask some probing questions. And fourth, you look for context clues. All four are absolutely crucial. But for today, we're really going to focus on mastering those first two foundational steps, finding the evidence, and then connecting it to what you already know.
Okay, let's start with step 1. Read carefully for clues. Take a look at this sentence. You might see something like this in a lab report. Let's put on our detective hats and find the key pieces of evidence right here in the text.
The key words here are failed and contaminated. Those are our smoking guns, our biggest clues. The text doesn't explicitly say how it happened, but by linking these two words, we can infer the cause. Something probably went wrong with the handling of the samples, which led to the failure. That's our detective work in action. All right, now for step 2. Use your existing knowledge. Remember, the clues in the text are only half the story. The other half comes from you, from your brain. Let's look at this sentence. Samantha wore a coat, gloves, and a scarf. So the text doesn't say a single word about the weather, not one. But you already know that people wear coats and gloves and scarves when it's cold outside. So by combining the clues from the text with your real-world knowledge, you can easily infer that the weather is cold. Do you see? Inference is really a partnership between the writer and you, the reader.
Okay, we've seen how this works with some everyday examples. Now, let's take that same detective mindset and apply it to a tougher neighborhood, the world of academic texts. This is where writers really rely on your ability to infer what they mean.
You might come across a sentence like this in a research paper. It sounds, well, complicated. The sample size limits the generalizability of the findings. But what the author is implying is actually pretty simple. They're telling you, hey, our results are interesting, but we only studied a small group, so you can't assume this is true for everybody. Your inference translates that academic jargon into a clear, simple takeaway. Here's another one. The sentence doesn't come right out and say, you should use peer review, but by stating this fact, that students who use it get better results, the author is clearly implying that it's a really valuable and effective tool for learning. This is a perfect example of how inference helps you dig out the author's main point.
And you know, this skill isn't just for reading. It is so important for listening too, especially in lectures. Imagine your professor says this in class. What are they really trying to tell you?
What's happening here is the professor is giving you a quiet little warning. They're implying that this method isn't perfect, it's not foolproof. A really good student will hear that and make a mental note.
or even a real one that says, okay, be critical here, watch out for those exceptions. It's all about listening for what's not being said, just as much as what is.
Like any other skill, making inferences gets way easier with practice. So, let's wrap up by talking about how you can actually train yourself to become a better detective. Here are 4 simple habits you can start building right now. First, when you're reading, just pause after a paragraph and ask yourself, okay, what is the author suggesting here? Second, get a highlighter out and physically mark the words that feel like clues. Third, talk about your inferences with friends or a study group. See if they spotted the same evidence. And finally, and this is the golden rule, always check that your conclusion is actually supported by evidence in the text and isn't just a wild hunch.
So there you have it, your detective's guide to inferring meaning. It's such a powerful skill. It changes you from being just a passive reader into an active, critical thinker. The next time you open a book or sit down for a lecture, remember your toolkit. Now that you know how to look for the clues, just think of all the hidden meanings you're going to uncover.